What's going on, data devotees? This is Jameson here, and this video is an orientation on coding in R for policy analytics. Not only a look at the syllabus and the course schedule, but an understanding of some of the different platforms that we'll be using, as well as some helpful resources to guide you over the duration of the next 7 to 8 weeks of this course. Of course, it's always helpful to be able to have access to new content, as well as to be able to quickly visit some of the extra resources that we do have available to you, and that includes videos like this one. So if you click on this video's YouTube symbol, or logo, you should be able to quickly jump to the channel. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and stay subscribed, at least for the duration of the course, so you can stay apprised of new content as it comes out. As I'll be making the occasional new video, but also there's plenty of videos that already exist on there that specifically cover content for this course, and you will find likely to be very helpful. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so I'm already on iCollege, and this is the home page for Coding in R for Policy Analytics. And so you'll see a few different resources here already at your disposal. So there is, of course, a picture of me and office hours. So if you'd like to schedule during Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., any of those times, that's EST, by the way, just feel free to click schedule here, and that's going to open up my Calendly. And so this allows you to simply click on a date, choose a time. These are 20-minute slots each. Of course, typically these don't get filled up, so we can oftentimes exceed 20 minutes. However, that tends to change towards the end of the course as things get a little bit busier and folks want to begin scheduling office hours a bit more. So it's as simple as that, and then once you do that, you'll be sent an invite, because this is integrated with Google or your email, something to that effect. Certainly integrated with my Google email, and I'll receive automatically a calendar event. Okay, so when you click on the introduction, you'll get the welcome, and this is going to give you an overview of the course, some of the objectives that we'll have. Now, these have been expanded on. These are some helpful notes from me, your professor, your instructor. And some of these are kind of general, but I would also recommend considering these last couple of points here. So not only to kind of embrace uncertainty and that you're learning a new language, we're using new platforms and that sort of thing. And for many of you, certainly an e-textbook and an open source textbook might be somewhat of a novel or unconventional platform. But also learn how to learn R and take the time to be able to understand the different resources and avenues that you have at your disposal to be able to learn a programming language. And so it's not simply internet tutorials, it's not simply blogs, it's a series of anything from interactive courses to very popular websites for posting questions and getting a bunch of different answers and massive Q&A threads like Stack Overflow, for example, or for using GitHub to post issues and ask questions of your peers. Managing your time, obviously using existing course resources, and again, that's sort of reference to learning how to learn R. And we've mentioned this before, the YouTube channel, as well as communication. So communicate with me. Don't hesitate to do that if you're starting to feel the heat or beginning to struggle with any course content. Don't hesitate to contact me, and of course communicate with your fellow learners, whether it's through iCollege or it's through GitHub. So next, you should have the schedule and content available to you. Oops. Is there anything left in introduction? Class introductions and syllabus. Yes, we'll go through the syllabus as well as the course schedule. One thing I do want to mention about class introductions here is that the first week you will be expected to use iCollege to create a post that discusses you, your previous experience with coding or data analytics, and then one thing you hope to do with your new skills in data analytics. So that will be due by June 11th, which is only a few days from now. And so don't forget to do that. Of course, this adds to your participation points, which is approximately 10% of the course overall points. So do keep that in mind, and then you'll be expected to consistently participate throughout the rest of the course. So great. Let's jump into the syllabus, which you get to by simply clicking Introduction, and that will take you to the syllabus here. Now, I can't even say I strongly recommend. Everybody is expected to read and understand the syllabus for obvious reasons, but this is what that looks like, right? So feel free to check this out on your own, but I'm going to go over a few major points here that I want to make sure that everybody's privy to, and just make sure that those expectations are 100% clear. So yeah, we've got some pretty basic course information. The course numbers vary, and information, of course, about me as the instructor. So feel free to click on any of these links. Visit my LinkedIn, shoot me an email. Another place where you can schedule office hours. So there are multiple touch points for this. And again, you just simply click on schedule, and that will take you to my Calendly page. So for lab sessions, we won't be using this, at least for the time being. This course is asynchronous and online. I don't anticipate having in-person review sessions during the duration of this current course. It's possible that may change in the future, but obviously I will keep you updated on that. So let's say you have a question. So you can actually get to the course GitHub here. And so this is something that I really want to point out as needing to be aware of. So here's the quote-unquote discussion board. However, it's easier to just refer to this as GitHub issues page, and that's what you'll hear me refer to it as going forward. So there's only one issue here. There's 4 previously closed issues, and that's actually from the last course. So you might be able to find some hints, but some of those aren't even relevant anymore. Anyways, we'll talk about GitHub in a second. That is certainly on our list of things to discuss. So again, to be able to get to the GitHub page, you can, and I strongly recommend you bookmark the GitHub page as it is separate outside of iCollege, so do give that a try. There are textbooks, but none of them are required, and most of them are free. So we have the Art of Data Science. So it says free online. That's no longer true. It's actually up to $20 now. But this is from a great website called LeanPub, not just the Art of Data Science by Matsui and Peng, but the cool thing about LeanPub is that you have tons and tons of books that are actually works in progress. They're getting updated over time. And so in this case, this is a minimum price and a suggested price. Now you might be wondering, why is there a suggested price? Well, most of the books on this website are absolutely free, and I strongly recommend checking it out, not only for data science, but I mean, they're just see, there we go. So we have the same book by Dr. Roger Peng from Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins, and this is absolutely free. And so if you would like to not pay anything, that's totally up to you. And if you do want to help out, you can pay 15, 30, 10, 5, anything you want to help those authors. Now, I wouldn't call Dr. Peng a struggling author by any means, but certainly there are people who will be posting and hosting their books through LeanPub. It's a great resource, so it's good to be familiar with that. Again, none of these textbooks are required, but they are there. These are just some recommendations, and there are plenty of other ones that talk about data science in general, that talk about data science in the social sectors, or social sector analytics, data-driven performance management using nonprofit or public sector, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, you could just talk about data science in general or languages other than R. Many of those resources exist for free on LeanPub. So again, I strongly recommend that for any other textbooks you want to visit. Okay, cool. So course description, pretty straightforward in terms of what you can expect, what we're going to be talking about, and then these learning objectives as well. So mastering functions. So what is a function? Well, you can think of anything that finds like the sum, the average, the minimum and maximum. If you're accustomed to Excel, you're very, very much used to functions in the formula bar. So functions just allow us to be able to put things inside of a function and have them come out the other end with some desirable change. It's kind of like if a function were an oven, we'd have all these ingredients and out comes a cake or something to that effect. So, right, dynamic graphics, visualizations, using logical statements to be able to analyze groups. So logical statements are, is this true or is this false? Well, if it's true, then put it in a group and let's analyze it. So there aren't any prerequisites for this. You don't really need a background in programming, though of course it would be helpful. Two things I should say that you need to have ready by the start of this course is having R and RStudio downloaded and installed. I have seen a little bit more trouble with Mac users in getting RStudio installed, but overall I think this is a relatively straightforward process. You should be able to find plenty of videos online that show how to do it if you can't immediately do it yourself, and I think that most of you probably can. That said, shoot me an email if you're having any issues with this. I'd be happy to help. Okay, so how are you graded? Well, okay, so we have weekly lab assignments. There's going to be 6 of those in total. There are discussion topics, and there's something missing here, so I do want to point that out. A final project that integrates several skills to create a data dashboard. Okay, well, yes, that's true. And then there's another final project called a code through, where you will be expected to write about a technique or create some sort of a tutorial yourself about some sort of new function or package in R that you found helpful and that we didn't cover in this particular course. So that is something that I'll actually make an adjustment to this right now. So hopefully by the time you see the syllabus, you'll see that change there. All right, so none of those textbooks that we had mentioned before were integral or absolutely critical, I should say. But what is quote unquote required, or we should just say assigned. Required almost feels like you have to buy it. I don't know. Maybe that's the language choice here. But the course textbook itself, so you can actually visit that. It's ds4ps.org/dp4ss. Data programming for the social sciences, and then DS4PS is data science for public service. So I would not worry about this too much because we're going to link to this in the course schedule and especially the relevant parts that you need to be familiar with. So I really, honestly, even though it's on the homepage, actually, I think I took it off the homepage. Yeah. So you've got your assignment templates, you've got your schedule and content, but no, I removed it from the homepage. So, okay, cool. Yeah, so the course schedule is going to take you to the relevant parts of the textbook that you'll need to be able to understand the content that we'll be reviewing. So course grading, again, so discussing these, the expected assignments, not only are there these 6 weekly labs, so each week you'll be expected to complete a lab assignment, and there are templates that are established for that and instructions for each of these labs, where you get to use and implement some new skills in the R language that you've learned via the content for that week. And the final projects include the dashboard project, and there's a code through as well. I've got to go back and change this. And discussion topics are actually going to be 10%. I think the reason that this is a bit muddled here is that 10% of the discussion topics is the code through itself. And so again, I'll go through and change this. But so 10% is a participation grade. That's every single week you're going to be expected to participate and provide substantive comments, thoughtful responses, or make your own posts, and you'll be rewarded different points based on the quality of those posts, and hopefully enough such that you should be able to receive a full 10% of your points for participating in this course via iCollege. The other 10% will be sharing your code through. So I will clarify some of this language here, and I apologize again for that. Half the course is the labs. One thing that I do want to note about the labs is that, so late and missing assignments, late submissions, I suppose labs are pass-fail. That's the thing about labs. And so I'll probably knock off, each lab is worth 10 points. It's 50% of your grade. So I'll probably knock off, let's make that more definitive. I will knock off 1 point per day that it's late. If only my dog is getting a little excited. She really enjoys pedagogy and syllabi, so it's difficult to suppress her excitement sometimes. So we'll knock off 1 point for each day that's late. Up to a certain point, once we've published the solutions, we can no longer really accept that. So please understand that. And what's more, please note this as well, is that there is one free pass for the labs. So if you can't finish a lab, if you don't feel comfortable turning in a lab in its state, you get one free week. I strongly recommend that you don't use that immediately. I would use that towards kind of the latter half of the course, where labs are going to be not only begin to get a little bit more difficult, but they'll also be you'll also be contending with not only projects in your other courses, but also the final projects for this course. The labs do get a little bit easier around that time too, but it's just better safe than sorry. Just and hey, if you don't need to use your free pass, then that's wonderful. Lastly, I do want to say that for these labs, they're pass-fail, but just complete like more than half the lab. I strongly encourage you to do as much of it as you can, but there are gonna be things that you might not be able to figure out. There may be things you might not be able to figure out, and I do expect you to give your best effort. If you can't figure it out, tell me why. Get as close to answering the question as possible, even if that means that you can't answer it at all, but you explain kind of the logic behind it, something like that. You just gotta, if I see that there's no effort that's been exerted, if you will, for lab assignments, that tends to show. So that I unfortunately won't be able to pass that. Give it your best shot, and hopefully you can get it all. Cool. All right, student conduct. Obviously on iCollege, that needs to be commensurate and in accordance with the expectations of the Andrew Young School, as well as Georgia State University Student Code of Conduct. And that is the same with the academic integrity and honesty policy. Of course, if you need if you need to cite something, better to err on the side of caution. Make sure that you include your citations. As it says here, plagiarism will not be tolerated. So there's really, plagiarism's weird with code, because you can have 20 people who are asked to do ultimately the same thing in a coding assignment, and they're all going to give the same answer, more or less, because there's only one way to be able to achieve that solution via code. So plagiarism can be kind of strange, especially also if there's just a best way to do something, and everybody's working with the same data. You're gonna see some some people giving the same answer. So that happens from time to time, and that's not judged terribly harshly. If you are using somebody else's code verbatim, whether that's for your code through, which isn't uncommon, it's like, hey, look what this person did, I'd like to talk about it. Just credit that individual, she or he, her or him, for that code, where you found it, and obviously following citation and academic integrity. That's obviously the same with human language and not just machine readable language like R. So do keep that in mind for academic integrity. Most people gloss over this, but I would like to give that some special due attention. So accommodations, obviously, these are unexpectedly abnormal times, for kind of a very mild way of putting it. And if you haven't registered with a disability and require reasonable accommodations already, do feel free to do so. And obviously, people are going through ranges of emotions right now. People are going through life getting in the way. Life is what happens when you're making plans. And so it's a tough time for a lot of people, if not everybody. So, do take note. If you do need a disability accommodation or reasonable accommodation for, say, flexible deadlines or anything like that, do contact Georgia State University's AACE. That's the Access and Accommodation Center. So, yeah. And of course, we do have ways for that to be flexible here. It's not a difficult implementation for accommodations at all. And I am accustomed to it. So you would not be the first. So that about covers the syllabus. Cool. So let's cross that off the list. Now, we've gone through the welcome. We've covered class introductions and also the syllabus. Let's look at schedule and content. So to get here, you simply just click on view schedule, visit schedule and contents. I already have it opened up here. And this is your course schedule. So this, of course, at the top navigation bar, you've got your syllabus as well, which we just went through. And then we've got your code schedule, your textbook, a few different resources, etc. And then you have, this is the link to actually get to the GitHub too. So another touch point to be able to get to GitHub issues, aka the discussion board. So if you have questions or anything like that, just go ahead and click that GitHub icon, which is that little kind of Alice in Wonderland cat sort of silhouette there. So each week in this course schedule, you're going to have a series of different either assigned readings to do, and we have icons that represent that. You may have a video lecture. You're probably viewing the orientation video right here. Of course, I'm making it now, so it doesn't exist there yet. And you'll also have these assignments and then a corresponding assignment icon as well. So you click on any of these down arrows and they will expand. So here's your course prep checklist. So make sure you read the syllabus, install R and R Studio, and then you sign up for a GitHub account. And then, of course, you introduce yourself to the class by going to iCollege. And then there's a little bit about me as well. We'll have some embedded videos throughout this course schedule, so do take a look at those. And then, of course, an introduction to R. And every single week, you're going to have these different assigned readings, some of which are quite brief and some are a bit longer or more in-depth, as well as some interactive exercises and things. That's the beauty of being able to use a online coded open source textbook. So what's more, each week you will have these discussion topics on which you have to respond. There's Ben Wellington, the data storyteller, of course, the famous and infamous iQuant New York blogger who found these quote-unquote honeypot fire hydrants that were hauling in $30,000 to $35,000-ish a year. So that's a fun and exciting opening discussion topic, is what we can find out with big data, or open data, I should say, in this particular case. So then we've got our Lab 1 instructions. So this is, again, you'll have 6 different labs, one for each week. So you can download, you can open up the functions, the instructions, and you can also download the template. Now the template is simply available here back in iCollege. So you click on that, and to download the template, you would click on download. If you have RStudio installed, it's going to automatically open up as a R document. And cool, we've got our template here. And of course, it's downloading a massive data set in order to compile, but just to show you what a template looks like, this is what it's going to look like in R. I realize that might be a little intimidating right now, so don't pay too much mind. I've got a couple other things open here, and it's a little bit distracting. But anyways, the template ultimately looks like this. So you've got an introduction to your data, you've got a question, you've got a written answer or somewhat, and you've got what's called a code chunk, or some place where you can provide your code that provides a solution to the question. So the things that you're going to be showing, of course, are not only answers to the question written in human readable language, but the code that you use to be able to get there. And you've got some helpful tips that you're expected to eliminate, cut off from the bottom once you compile your lab and you turn that in. So again, things are pretty busy here. I'll make it look a little bit less intimidating. And yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So this is what you might normally see when I open up R. Sorry that y'all had to be kind of hit with a lot of information and noise at the same time. So right on. So again, for each week you get instructions. You can have a lab template that you download, so all well and good. And then you get down to dashboards and code through. So this is an assignment. I'm going to change up some of the language here again to make that more explicit. But then you have here download the template. So there are templates not only for every single lab, but these are templates that I created myself to be able to kind of get you started with the assignments. And I should add to that. The data dashboard was created by Dr. Jesse Lisi of Arizona State University's Watts College. And so he created the initial template for that dashboard, which is already a fully functional dashboard that you simply have to add to for your final project. However, I also include a template in there that should allow you to be able to more easily create additions to that existing dashboard that's going to help out with the final project, and it should make it more manageable and especially much more compact when it comes to the amount of code that you'll be using. So cool. So for the code through, you're expected to essentially write about, and I just want to talk about these final projects real quick. I pretty much covered the data dashboard. Data dashboard there's an existing dashboard. It's pretty neat. It uses Tempe, Arizona collision reports that have been shared via the city's open data portal. And so you can use those data to be able to create this data dashboard, aka Crashboard. And you'll be expected to create a couple new modules on that dashboard to be able to augment it to your liking, restylize it, add your own flair to it, and have some written descriptions about providing credit, providing more information about the project itself, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really what the data dashboard is. It's pretty straightforward. Not something that you have to think too hard about in advance. However, it's important to probably begin paying attention to, or pay special attention to the unit on creating dashboards using the Shiny library. And that's going to be helpful ultimately when it comes to that final project. The other thing I want to discuss is the code through. So what is the code through? Code through is essentially creating a tutorial about a data set, a series of functions, or one singular function a package, which is another way of saying an extension in R, or a library. Anything like that we didn't really teach in this course, but you happen to have stumbled upon or deliberately found when it came to learning a little bit more about R outside of the course. And so why is it important to you? Share some examples. What's the purpose of it? What problems does it solve for the user? How can we find out more information? How can we learn about it? And then what were your sources that you can cite for your information? So that's essentially what a code through is. It can really be any number of different topics or a singular topic. And so it's good to start thinking from the very beginning of the course what you're going to make your tutorial on, and what you want, on what you'd like to focus. So that's important. If you like something, write it down, make a note of it, and say like, yeah, I want to create a tutorial about this. So yeah. So that about covers the course schedule. Lastly, I do want to go over the GitHub and then also my YouTube channel as well, which you should find as a helpful resource. So for the GitHub repository for the course, it looks like this. And so you really don't have to worry about this. It's not like you can edit it, but if you actually wanted to, you could technically go into the source code and you could download all of this for yourself. And here's some images actually, but you could download all of this for yourself and make modifications to it. It is open source, so we share all of the foundational code. Here we have the Associate Dean, Dr. Searcy, and this is all hosted on her GitHub profile. So let's see. So when you're here, the issues section is what you want to pay attention to. So let's click on issues. Cool. Now we only have one issue here already, but you simply click new issue to create a new issue. There are some better ways to post issues and worse ways to post issues, some recommended best practices. And so this is kind of a guide to going through that. I strongly recommend that you read the guide first. This is really quite brief. These are just updates. Don't even worry about those. But yeah, so check out the guide and see some of the tips and tricks. But essentially it boils down to make sure that your title of your issue is informative. Make sure that you've tagged it with a proper label if that's possible, if it's relevant. Make sure that you're using proper formatting and that sort of thing. And there's just kind of a neat little checklist of things that you want to make sure that you're including when you post an issue, if you want the best, most accurate response possible. So yeah, so that's GitHub Issues. It is one of the main platforms that we'll be using to communicate, especially code-related questions and issues, literally. So it's something to keep in mind. And lastly, that brings us to the YouTube channel. So this is my channel. I created it for the course I was teaching last semester at Arizona State University. So you will see a combination of, so for example, this orientation is for the class at Arizona State University. But in essence, really, this course at GSU and the course at ASU are ultimately the same course. So you can use a lot of these same videos to be able to learn about that week's content. Now, each week has its own playlist, so do check that out. So week 2, if you open up that playlist, it's going to give you, here's 4 different videos that really get into the nitty gritty. And what's more, I realize that these may seem a bit long. I err on the side of being more verbose and providing more detail. If you want to skip that, you can skip it. And if you don't, you don't have to. But the important thing here is that there are bookmarks, which effectively act as timestamps for every single video. So if it looks like a longer video, then go check out the bookmarks at the bottom, and that says, okay, hey, I want to learn more about this practice data set. Click on that, and of course it takes you to that point in the video. I want to learn about the pipe operator. Okay, so now we're at that point in the video. So those timestamps are actually down here in the bottom. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know it did that automatically. Huh, okay. I'll have to check out why that's happening for that video and not others. But who knows? Maybe it's new. So do keep in mind that there is this. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, at least for the duration of the course, so you can keep apprised to new data, new videos coming out, new information coming out. And every single week, if you're struggling with any content, or if you just want to get into the nitty gritty or learn a little bit more, or see things demonstrated, I think is the true value of these videos, do feel free to click on any of these week's playlists, or things like learning how to learn R, which is a bit more detailed. You have several videos here that are going to teach you best practices when it comes to teaching yourself a programming language. So these tend to be a little bit shorter videos, but yeah, that should be pretty helpful. So that is it. That is orientation. And lastly, I suppose before I finish up, there will be announcements just to keep you apprised of anything that's happening, if there's any updates to the material, if there's a new video that comes out, and of course when lab solutions get posted, I will probably provide some general feedback for the class, so that everybody is kind of aware of what's happening and has a pretty good understanding of my having evaluated and assessed everybody's progress collectively. So so that'll happen down here in the announcements. And thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and good luck with the rest of your first week assignments, introducing yourself, and orienting yourself for the rest of the course, resources, and material. And we'll see you in the course. Thanks.